I was standing outside, shoes on, shorts on, sun's out, crisp, cold air of the morning. I told myself I was going to run. But I was frozen, just standing there. Isn't that wild? Why is it so hard to start something? Hello there, people. Welcome. This will be my first episode of many more to come. First of all, my name's Johnny, and I've created a chapter series that I'm currently working on, and believed a good second edition would be to answer a question each week about maybe a current event or some deep meaning questions that people might have or something that just comes to mind. So obviously this is my first episode, and in the comments there isn't any because this is the first go around. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to answer a question just kind of off the hip and go from there just to get some interaction with different people that start to watch and see how it evolves going into the future. So the first question is, why is it so hard to start something? And again, this makes a perfect intro into this because it's exactly how I've started wanting to do some YouTube stuff, and it was been on my mind for years, and I just talked about doing the thing and never did the thing. And finally, for whatever reason, I just said, you know what, I'm just going to start. And from there, that's when things happen. So it's very tough to get through that. And you'll hear sometimes people say the hardest thing is just starting. And I believe that to be somewhat true. And it's what everything we do, right? It's that nervousness by getting that first job or going through the interview questions and what am I going to say? And sometimes you can plan exactly what you're going to do, but then you walk into whatever situation it is and it totally doesn't go that way. You've just wasted time and energy creating a narrative in your head that never takes place. But that's part of the process, is you go through that. It's just prepping or priming the mind to be able to get through that threshold, to be able to move forward into getting something started. And see, again, what I find with your brain, it just likes to keep things simple, right? And over years, especially, at my age, your brain's pretty much locked in, right? It likes the habitual habits, the predictable things, right? And if you're part of you that wants to change, right, your brain's going to fight you on it all the time, right? It doesn't really want you to start something new. It likes to be lazy, as I would call it. But it shouldn't stop you. At the same time, it's that courage to just say, you know what, I'm going to do that. So whether it's starting to do some YouTube videos or maybe even singing a song or going out for a run, because really that was one of the biggest things that I changed in my life was trying to start being more active. And I remember getting that thought in my head, or it came to me, is like, just run. And I remember going outside the next morning and thought, am I really going to do this? Like, I'm going to run. I had the shoes on, the shorts on, the t-shirt. And sure enough, finally I just felt that inertia, and then bang, I was running. I got to about 100 meters and was out of breath and started to walk again. But that was that start. And I ended up walking a few kilometers. And then the next day, I said, okay, I'm going to run just a little bit farther. And before I know it, I guess I was called a runner. And it felt really good. So those are the type of things that are very tough. You kind of freeze up when you're going to do something. And again, I like to just, answer these questions during these sessions, just as I am right now, just talking, very little editing, if any, and just see if that lands with anybody out in the audience, and to go, ask those questions like, hey, what do you want to know? And, I can give you my opinion. Definitely not an expert on anything. I'm just an individual that's, lived life and have gained a lot of wisdom throughout the way by, interacting with people, myself. And, I have, yes, opinions on things, but I'm one that likes to look at both sides of the coin, right? I don't believe there's a lot of things set in stone. A lot of things that we know are our truths right now. But if you look in the past, people would say those same things. But they've changed through other discoveries and people investigating and digging deeper, right? And I think that's part of that human experience, is asking questions, right? It's like the 2-year-old kid, why, what's that, right? We're very inquisitive, and it's nice to have these conversations, right? And, sometimes they're uncomfortable conversations, but if you sit with it, right, and you realize when you get uncomfortable that there's probably some gold there. We don't have to just auger down in a certain belief system, right? We can have those, right? And it's very good for us to have, or to be anchored down in a belief system or a structure, right? To keep us grounded. But at the same time, there is alternative thoughts out there, and you may not agree with them, right? And that's one thing. I don't want to be here to try to push ideology onto people. However, I like to talk about a lot of psychological things and how people interpret them, including myself, and just really about conversation, because I think that's what we're lacking in a lot of our circles, right, is having those true and honest conversations, right? We're in these loop systems that, in our jobs, and, kind of forget about, what's really important at the end of the day. So going forward, we'll just keep asking the questions together and see where it goes. So right now, have I answered that question? No, not really, right? I'm doing a lot of talking, and that's where I want to go with it, is just to see where it goes, and to see what happens after, I post these things and have people watching them and go, hey, okay, I'm listening to this guy, maybe he's got some interesting topics to talk about, and, hey, I'm going to give him one that's on my mind. And that's what I'm looking for, is just to get a little back and forth, and, just to maybe leave everybody, trying to answer that question themselves, right? Even through my thoughts and thought-provoking responses to this. So welcome again, everybody. Again, this is the first episode, truly raw. Just going to leave it as is and see if I can evolve and get better, and, to really give you guys what you want without me jeopardizing who I am. And that's one of the things I'm really trying to focus on, is if I can't be myself, then why do I want to change myself to, say, work at a place or work with a YouTube platform where my audience is trying to change me? Because I'm not asking to change you. I'm just asking that we all look into the deeper parts of ourselves and start asking questions and see what that little voice inside says to you. All right, until next time, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you are going to enjoy the chapters series, and I am going to add a third part, so stay tuned to that, and we'll go from there. All right, peace.